Doing an episode. It's Sunday. It is a day of rest for the World Series, but not for Locked On MLB. We're going to be talking a little bit about the state of the World Series, the state of the Astros, who I think are in great shape, even though they split the first two games. And we are going to be taking a drink because it is time for a little bit of bourbon and baseball with the host of Bourbon and Baseball, that would be Suzy Fulton. And this is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am indeed your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Check out my lower third there. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been podcasting for over 10 years right now about baseball, and this is my fourth year. We're wrapping up with the Locked On Podcast Network. And you can find some of my other work. I've been on HBO talking baseball. I've read stuff for USA Today. Did I mention my Emmy nomination? I did stand-up comedy, did a lot of filmmaking, a lot of cool stuff like that. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. And you can follow me. I'm Paul Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. So, yeah, as I mentioned, it's a day off of the World Series. Everyone's regrouping. Everyone's flying to Philadelphia. Who would have thought we'd be going to Philadelphia for the World Series? But here we are. They were chanting, "Let's go Phillies" at the Eagles game. And the Astros are in very good shape. I mentioned that on the Saturday podcast. Even though they split the series, I think their pitching staff is lined up. And I think that a lot of things are going their way, even though they lost that first game, which was a tough one. You know what? In the end, I think they're still in very good shape with their pitching lined up and to go forward and win this year's World Series. But enough of me yapping about them. I've been bringing someone who lives, breathes, and dies by the orange color that is the Astros. And when she's starting to feel badly about them, she grabs a drink of bourbon, is the host of the Bourbon and Baseball podcast, Suzy Fulton. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Sully?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being a guest on the show. I know you've been on Locked On Astros with our mutual friend, H-Town Wheelhouse, or whatever his real name is. But you are a diehard Astros fan. I can tell by your closet we have behind you.
Yes, I am a diehard Astros fan, and my husband lovingly set all of this stuff up for me when I decided to go ahead and start a podcast. So a lot of this stuff is stuff from his collection that he had, and then stuff that I've collected over the couple of years that I've been collecting stuff. So,
all right, well, we're going to get into your podcast and everything about that a little bit later, but I want to just jump cannonball right into this World Series situation.
I like it. Let's do it.
We are right now. We've had the two games. Obviously, the Phillies had the remarkable comeback, remarkable for Phillies fans, in Game 1, which resulted in the 6-5 victory. One where Castellanos made the sliding catch with 2 outs in the ninth inning. That ball fell just a little bit in front of him. We'd probably be talking about a 2-0 series lead for the Astros right now. But as it was, the Astros rebounded. And I think that shows a lot about this team, that they had a gut punch of a loss, and they responded with an excellent outing by Valdez. Timely hitting right out of the gate. I mean, took the wind right out of any potential Phillies momentum by getting the first, I think the first 3 out of the first 4 pitches were doubles, if I'm not mistaken. Correct. And Altuve getting off the mat. He was the offensive star of Game 1 with the 3 hits, including the double and scoring the first, because that set the tone, even with being the caught steal. Getting an Altuve back and responding, I think is going to mean a lot for the Astros and having a good, solid showing of it when they go back to Philadelphia.
1,000%. he looked like he was coming back that last game at the ALCS against the Yankees, and went 2 for 4, and he looked like his timing was coming back slowly but surely. And I told one of my friends, by game 2, he's going to be locked back in. And sure enough, multi-hit game, and he's back. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was also, I mean, it's funny that the Pena, who's batting behind him, obviously he was the ALCS most valuable player, got a key double yesterday. I think he got the double to drive in Altuve on the second pitch of the game. Yep. But he could also sometimes look so fooled. I mean, there's no middle ground for Pena. Which we have to remember, the kid's a rookie. The kid, I think, is 14 years old. I may be wrong about that.
He's a little bit older than that, and I know this because if he was 14 years old, there would be lots of trouble, lots of legal issues. So he's a little bit older than that. Made sure. So,
okay. Why did you give him some bourbon and the Bourbon
definitely
and Baseball?
Illegal. No, okay. No. None of that. But there are a lot of cougars in Houston, so it's a little mountainous. Can be. Not really.
That is a reference, of course, to the University of Houston Cougars.
Yes.
But
yes.
And by the way, as a Washington State University grad, go Cougs. But I digress. It was a very good showing. I mean, if the Phillies jumped on Valdez, and I actually, I thought it was a very dangerous game for the Astros because Wheeler has been the best pitcher on the Phillies staff. Wheeler has pitched very well for the most part in the postseason. And with that just completely unlikely victory in game 1, handing the ball to Wheeler, if I were an Astros fan, I'd be thinking, wait a second. I mean, Valdez obviously has had a terrific season, but Valdez also got smacked around the World Series last year. And Verlander had a terrific season too, and he got smacked around. And there's one thing we've learned about the Philadelphia Phillies in this year's postseason, and that is trying to predict how they're going to do is an act of futility. So handing the ball to Wheeler down 0-1 in the series, as someone who is for, basically full discretion, I'm rooting for the Astros. I'm in the minority, but I really want to see Dusty Baker win a championship. That's the main. That's the same reason I rooted for them last year. But we saw last year this team get wobbly when they got punched by the Braves, and this took a lot to make sure that they counterpunched right out of the gate.
I think I wouldn't say saving grace with Wheeler getting the ball this time was the fact that they handed the ball to Nola to begin with. The fact that they needed, or the Phillies felt like they wanted to give Wheeler an extra day of rest kind of gave me pause to think, is he not 100%? Like, why does he need an extra day of rest? Because typically you would think it would go Wheeler Nola as opposed to Nola Wheeler. So the fact that they gave Nola the ball first to give Wheeler the extra day gave me a little pause. And I was thinking, well, maybe he's not 100%. And then the fact that, right out of the gate, we started with 3 doubles was like, oh, all right. I don't think he's at 100%. I think, he's leaving when he did miss, he would leave them out over the plate. And so thinking and looking back at his last performance in their CS, he didn't look quite as sharp either. So, right. I don't know if it's the length of the season or, whatever, but.
Or it could be a fluke. I mean, Verlander looked terrible his first start against Seattle. Then he looked very good his next start. I mean, he could have a bad outing. I felt it was less about giving Wheeler an extra day of rest and more about the fact that Nola would be sitting around for a really long time, and they didn't want him sitting around that extra day. That's at least that's what was fed to me. And why would Rob Thompson lie to me?
He has all of our best interests in heart. So
that's true. So, and so in the game, let me just ask you. I mean, look at game 1 was a potential gut punch for Astros fans, and yet the entire game, I just felt, even when the Phillies came back to tie the game, I just assumed the whole time the Astros were going to get the big hit at one. And when they got the on and the little flare that was caught by Castellanos, obviously in the ninth inning, after Altuve stole, if that ball had dropped for the Pena hit, that would have been a victory. Real Muto homers, but then you have the walk, the double, the walk, the wild pitch. Diaz kind of diving in, trying to pull the Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. Ow, my arm, and not quite. He should have let that pitch before him hit, but that's easy for us to say. We're not the ones standing in the box.
Yeah.
But when the wild pitch happened, I just said, okay, we all know what's going to happen. It's going to be a little bloop that hits that little Bermuda's Triangle or a little flare or something like that. And, it didn't happen. As a fan who has seen their share of gut punches, did you feel that sense of, oh, we're going to win this anyway? Or were you thinking, I can't believe this is slipping away from us?
I had the I can't believe it's slipping away from us, because my fandom of Aledmys Diaz has just basically shriveled away to nothing. He was going real well earlier on in the season, and between him and Mancini in that DH spot, it is just a pit of rage.
Yep.
For me at this point in time, and I think I may have officially started the petition for David Hensley to start in the DH spot. DH for DH, and that's what I want. So, I'm sure Dusty Baker definitely listens to my opinion, but
as well, he should.
Yes.
Now, wait a second. Has Hensley even gotten in?
Not in the World Series. I thought he would maybe get in the CS. He got some hits in the DS, but I don't think he was in at all in the CS.
I have to go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, to look this up. David Hensley, who played, let's remember, he played less than 20 games in the regular season. He did not play in either the Championship Series or the World Series. He was hit by a pitch in the league division series against
DS,
Seattle.
Yeah.
So that's why he has an OPS of 500. Well, do you want look at? I don't know. I can't.
It can't be any worse. It can't be any worse than what we're currently getting. So what the definition of insanity is: doing something over and over again and not working, right? So.
Well, look at. All I know is that if you put in Mancini or if you put in Diaz, then it is an absolute surefire bet that they are going to make it out at the worst time. And if you're going to make any bets, go to BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the World Series, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline. It's where the game starts. We're here with Astros fanatic Suzy Fulton, the co-host or one of the hosts of Bourbon and Baseball, funny podcast, and catch them on YouTube. Catch them on. Are you on also the podcasting catchers that people can follow the show if they just want to listen to them in their earbuds?
Yes, Apple, Spotify. I want to say we're on the other ones. I'm not positive on that, but Apple and Spotify for sure.
That's a good start. And on the YouTubes, you can see you too on the YouTubes. Now, for now, let's just make it very clear. I just want to get into this a little bit right now. Tell us a little bit about you co-host it with it's Suzy and Shell.
Yes.
Who would Shell be? Why is she not here? And why is it Bourbon and Baseball?
So
and I will remind you that you're under oath.
Shelby Miller is my co-host, and she turns into a pumpkin quite early on school nights. She is a teacher, and so
as am I. You'll notice that I'm up.
Yes,
but then again, it's Los Angeles 2 hours earlier. So
exactly. Actually, no, she is a counselor, I think. So, but she teaches all of the young minds. So she needs all of her sleep to deal with all of the sass that they need. So she turns into a pumpkin quite early. But Shelby and I started this podcast basically to talk about baseball with someone on our level of fandom, so that our significant others didn't have to listen to us anymore. And so I actually, funny story, in my real life, I am a photographer, and I actually took Shelby's senior high school pictures many, many moons ago. And so we've known each other for years. So we started Bourbon and Baseball basically because of the alliteration. I liked the B and the B, and it was between Bourbon and Baseball or alcohol and Astros. Like those were our two choices.
I think you picked the right one.
So we drink bourbon, we drink other various alcohols as well. But we drink, we talk about baseball, we have a good time.
Now, I want to make sure everyone realizes that this is Shelby Miller, not the former St. Louis Cardinal pitcher.
No.
Who I believe, wasn't Shelby Miller the person that the Braves traded? Yeah, it is. He's the one. He was traded from the Cardinals to Atlanta in the Jason Hayward trade. And then Atlanta flipped him for Ender Inciarte, but most importantly, Dansby Swanson. So, but Shelby Miller, who's he's still collecting a paycheck. He pitched for the Pittsburgh Pirates this year and made an all-star team, lest we forget, was an all-star with the Braves in 2015. Had two pretty good seasons with the Cardinals. Got to be on a team that played in the playoffs for a team that went to the World Series in 2013. It's had a nice career. People like to dump on that trade because they cost them Dansby Swanson, but it's not like it was a chump who was traded, but he didn't just work out in Arizona. But that is not your co-host.
No, definitely not that Shelby Miller. The other Shelby Miller, yes.
The other Shelby Miller. Okay. Yep. Now I completely understand the need to talk to someone who gets baseball at a certain level, because I have a thing that if I don't know something about a topic, I tend not to jump into a conversation about the topic, and I tend to listen to people who know what they're talking about. My brother Ted has said to me, he said, you either know everything about something or nothing about something. There's no middle ground. I said, yeah, it's probably true. That's probably true. And when I listen, but I love listening to people talk about something I don't know anything about, because I hear the enthusiasm of everything. But when someone wants to talk baseball, I'll never forget, and I was teaching in the Bay Area. I was up north, and someone wanted, so you're a big baseball fan? I said, yeah. So I'm a huge Giants fan. I said, oh, great. He said, do you know who my favorite player is? I'm thinking, okay, we're going to talk about Jeremy Affeldt. We're going to talk about, Travis Ishikawa. We're going to dig deeper, talk about maybe Brandon Crawford or, something like that. And they said, Buster Posey. Well, yeah. Okay. Congrats. You picked really? Right. Boy, you really put your neck on the line on that one. You like Buster Posey as a Giants fan. Hold on. Let me write that down in my tally here. And, or like I was talking to someone this year in like June who claimed, he said, I'm the biggest Yankee fan in the world. I said, okay. And then the next sentence he said, Aaron Judge is still on the team, right?
Was he a fan of the Yankee teams when they won the 27 rings? Like that era of Yankee fans?
He was in the championship back when they actually got into the World Series. Okay. We're talking several decades ago. And I'm thinking, you know what? I think the biggest Yankee fan in the world would be aware that Aaron Judge is still cashing a check for the New York Yankees. So I get it.
Yeah.
I started podcasting for that same reason too. So let's go back. You're an Astros fan. Are you a native of Houston? You grew up in Houston?
I'm not. Okay. No, I originally grew up in Vegas and moved to Texas about 17-ish, 18 years ago.
Okay.
So, and quite honestly, hated baseball for a long time, a very, very long time. My husband was a huge baseball fan, played baseball growing up, played baseball in the minors, and would always get to try and make me watch baseball. Like I don't want to watch baseball. So 2017 came around, Still didn't watch baseball. He made me watch the World Series. I fell asleep during Game 5. He woke me up at the end of Game 5 yelling, Bregman walked it off. He walked it off. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. I know what all of those words mean individually, but you put them together in a sentence, and I don't know what you mean. What are you talking about? I was like, did you guys win? Is that what you mean? And he was just so disgusted with me. He's like, yes, that means we won. And I was like, oh, okay, congratulations, hooray. And I go, did you really wake me up from a deep slumber to tell me this? And he was so mad. He's like, yes, I did. Oh, okay.
I get it.
Yeah. Didn't know any of the players, didn't really know anything. Wasn't super aware. I was like, I don't understand why Jose Altuve is over there if he's playing second. Like, isn't second base over there? And my husband would be like, shh, can I just watch the game? I'm like, okay. I'm like, but why is the shortstop so tall? I don't understand. Like, that's the name of the is Jose Altuve the short? He's like, no, Carlos Correa is the shortstop. I was like, oh, okay. I really, really, truly didn't understand anything to do with baseball. I thought it was the most boring thing in the entire world. And then 2018 season started, and I started kind of looking into it and kind of getting into it again, and wanting to figure out exactly why everybody was so obsessed with this Astros team and baseball in general, and then kind of fell in love.
Wow, you know what? It's funny because you have an interesting origin story, because most people I know either grew up with it, they were handed down, and it's sort of like, for me, I don't remember a time in my life where I wasn't obsessing about baseball. There's pictures of me age 5 or 6 flipping through the baseball encyclopedia and memorizing the stats. But like, it's interesting that you were brought into it. You were brought into it at a time of when they were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about the Astros or none of that.
Or back when they were a National League team, when they lost, they got swept by the White Sox. That's what I was going to ask if you had, who like,
well, so now we do have, like, when I say the old era, we have lots of like Biggio, Bagwell. Let's see. So the top,
I'm guessing no Cesar Cedeno, J.R. Richard, or Enos Cabell are back there.
I have a Hidalgo, I have a Doggy, Milo Hamilton, Jose Cruz, Jose.
Well, what is it? Are those cards you're pointing at? What are you pointing?
So up top,
is it DNA? Are you cloning Astros? What are you doing back there?
You're not, Sully. You're not supposed to give it away. That was a secret. Jeez.
It's like Jurassic Park with the Astros.
We're talking about baseballs here. So we have autographed baseballs up there.
Gotcha.
The top bat is a Bagwell bat. The autograph bat, the middle one is another Bagwell. Then the bottom one is a Mike Hampton. So anything that is of that era is lovingly referred to as my husband's. That's of his collection. So anything like classic Astros back in the day, any of that's his stuff. And then any of the newer players will be classified under my stuff.
Gotcha. Well, look at that.
So, yeah.
As long as you divide it up now, because I'm not saying that you weren't going to last, because obviously he's introduced you to this, but just make sure to label it well.
We've divvied it up.
And why the bourbon? Is it bourbon? Is it? I mean, do you guys just down bourbon before you start the show?
I mean,
or is it just purely the alliteration?
I don't understand why you gotta. There was a tone, Sully. There was a tone in that. I don't appreciate that. No, just kidding. No, it was not purely for the alliteration, but it was mainly for the alliteration. Like I said, we do drink the bourbon, but there is other alcohol involved as well. But we are not of those bourbon drinkers that will open up the bottle and tell you that there are notes of whatever and swirl it around. I'm not. Nope.
I've never had bourbon in my life. So I don't. That's so you could. I have no idea what those people are talking about.
I don't either. Quite honestly, I've had very bad experiences with Jack Daniels in college, and so I can't drink any sort of Jack Daniels. So the fact that this is a bourbon and baseball podcast, I've just stretched my limits and really go and drink the bourbon.
If I was Superman, and I spun the world backwards to about 6 years ago, and I would come up to you and say, you were going to have a podcast about baseball and bourbon, you probably would have looked at me as if I had lost my mind and then asked me how I time traveled.
Yes. Yeah. No, I would have told you that you were a dirty, filthy liar. There are actual Facebook status updates of mine that I repost talking about how much I disliked baseball. I used to call it sports ball.
Yeah.
And then now I look back and so I have twin 7-year-old daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning I go and wake them up for school. And the first thing out of their mouth is, did we win? What's the score?
Let this be a lesson to all of you. For those of you, and that's why, and I make it a point in my life, I never make fun of the stuff that people love. Like, what are you doing loving that? What are you doing loving this show? What are you loving the British monarchy or NASCAR or the Kardashians or whatever? Because they may turn around and say, why are you so obsessed about baseball? And you know what? We all need something like that. And you know what? Before you crap on it, give it a shot. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get into. You don't know what the thing you're going to be. Don't always roll your eyes because something's popular with a group. I'll never understand the people who make fun of those who get dressed up as Spider-Man or Black Panther for a movie premiere and then get dressed up as their favorite baseball player and do a fantasy draft. It's the same thing. You get obsessed. You get obsessed over your fantasy football team and then makes fun of someone who's obsessed over the Queen and the King Charles and all that. It's the same thing. And you may wind up liking it. Yeah. You may wind up being Suzy, hating sports ball. I don't like sports ball. Like the people on the Super Bowls. I don't care about the Super Bowl. Then don't watch it. I don't care about the American Music Awards at all. At all. I can't think of anything more boring to watch for me. But guess what? For some people, they may say, as I'm designing my day around the World Series, I'm designing my lesson plans around the playoff games. We all need that.
Oh, yeah. No, trust me. Halloween trick-or-treating, first pitch, 7:03, 7:05. We will be done. We will be done trick-or-treating, and I will be parked in front of my TV for first pitch.
Well, it's 5 o'clock first pitch here in Los Angeles, which means I'm the guy handing out the candy.
Nope. There would be a bucket outside and be like, here, help yourself.
I'll be handing out the candy. And when I'm on the porch, I'll have it on the radio. Actually, really, the COVID year, I only listened on the radio because I didn't like seeing the cardboard cutouts.
All right.
And so when I heard it on the radio, I just imagined a full stadium.
Okay. Yeah, I actually really like our radio broadcasters, Robert Ford and Sparky. Love them. And if there wasn't such a time lag between them announcing and what was actually happening on the TV, I would totally just mute the TV and just listen to them. But there's too much of a lag.
I wish that was easier to do, but what are you going to do? All right. We are here with Suzy Fulton of Bourbon and Baseball. Going to wrap it up. See, there's a few people in the chat right now. Hello, everyone in the chat. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw it in there. I want your predictions of what's going to be happening here. And let's just remind ourselves this is being dropped on Halloween. Boo. You're going to be going as an Astros fan, I'm assuming. It's Noah Syndergaard and Lance McCullers. A really terrific matchup if we're going back in time to 2016. We're with all the great pitchers out there. The fact that Noah Syndergaard is the one still pitching with Met connection is absolutely bizarre. But I think the Astros have the leg up on that matchup. And with Suarez, who's not a bad pitcher, but right now it's TBD. Does anyone know what happened? Is Jose Urquidy, is he okay or is he hurt? What's going on with him?
He's still chilling in the bullpen.
So he's the main tag repairman, essentially.
Yeah. Yep. He's still chilling back there. I mean, between our high leverage relievers and our starting rotation, it is, as we say, an embarrassment of riches. I mean, heck, Ryan Stanek, who arguably had the lowest ERA in the Astros history,
Yeah.
has still yet to. I mean, I think he touched a baseball twice this entire time, and we're like, hey, where's Ryan Stanek? Like, what's he doing? So I think if worse comes to worse, we can throw Jose Urquidy out for some long relief. But at this point, I don't think it's necessary unless all hell breaks loose. But
if they didn't use him in an 18-inning game, that's saying something.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction, and this could be dangerous because my predictions tend to be dangerous. I don't think the series is going to come back to Houston.
Really?
I think the trophy is going to come back to Houston, but I don't think the series is going to come back to Houston. I think the Astros are going to dust themselves off. I think they're going to win on Halloween night. I think that game 4 will be a back and forth, and this one the Astros will hang on to. Then they'll hand the ball to Verlander, and Verlander will right the wrong, and you will see them dancing on the mound in Philadelphia. That's my prediction, that the Astros have lost their last game of 2022.
Wow. Yeah, both Shelby and I think Astros in 6. I think it's coming back, and I think we win it here at home. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I the only reason I say that is the only reason this isn't 2-0 is just a ball that was a matter of inches, and that Dusty was kind of caught off guard by how quickly they got to Verlander. I mean, Verlander looked like he was having a vintage great Verlander start, and you're thinking maybe he can go 6, 7, maybe he'll pitch into the 8th, to suddenly, oh boy, we better get someone up. And everyone they used, with the exception of Garcia, worked out of the bullpen. So, I mean, it was really just a fluke here or there that caused the series to be a game tied each. I still think the Astros are much better.
And that comebacker by Realmuto to Verlander to drop it. I don't know if it was a mental. I mean, obviously it was a mental error because he dropped it and whatnot. But if it was a mental error mixed with, did he tweak something and that's why stuff was off, or it got into his own head? I don't know. But like after that, it went to Poopsville.
Yeah, but it didn't go to the next day. And that's why I think the Astros, they did not allow it to snowball. And I think that's the difference here. Well, I'll tell you what is also going to be the difference here. Suzy Fulton, tell people where they can follow your terrific show.
You can find us on Twitter at Bourbon in Baseball, the letter N. You see it down there. We are also on Instagram at Bourbon in Baseball Pod. You can find us on YouTube. Unfortunately, we don't have our handle yet, although we have 56 subscribers now, so we're very excited about that. And you can find us on Facebook at Bourbon and Baseball.
All right. And by the way, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, from the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, it's available on this app, the YouTubes, and wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about an unlikely baseball origin story, which went from, oh, I don't like baseball, to I am now making a corner of my house devoted to it. That's Suzy Fulton of Bourbon and Baseball. Thanks for being a new friend of the podcast. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, please, please